Hi, this is Angie with St. Louis Music Press, and today I'm talking to Jack Hues of Wang Chung. Jack, hi, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks, Angie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great.
So, what are you up to? Are you at home in England now?
I am, yeah, yeah. I live in a city called Canterbury in the UK, which is just a bit southeast of London. So also close to the continent, so you can get to France really quickly from here. So it's kind of a nice place to live, actually.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, you guys have a new CD that's coming out. It's set to release actually in just a couple days called Tazer Up.
that's correct. Yeah,
Um,
it's actually going to just be a download only thing for now. The CD, I think we'll probably do in the summer, probably to coincide when we're touring.
I got a chance to preview and listen to that a little bit, and this is really great. I mean, it still sounds like Wang Chung. That it's
Right?
there because it's your voice, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really different than your previous music. There's a whole lot of variety in there.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think back in the 80s, we were eclectic, is the word I like to use. In other words, we approach genre as something that we kind of use as we feel free. I think some bands these days are defined by genre, but with us, it was always, hopping from one thing to another. So I think, if you check out something like our first Geffen album, Points on the Curve, that had Dancehall Days on it, and was a sort of reasonably sophisticated pop album, I suppose, and then we did To Live and Die in LA, which was a lot darker, and that was the movie soundtrack. And then we followed that with Mosaic, which had Everybody Have Fun Tonight, so that was a much kind of lighter, brighter pop album. So I think we've always hopped around. But I agree, this new album, Tazer Up, has quite a variety of stuff on it, from sort of piano ballads through to kind of electro pop and yeah, all points in between. But as you say, I think most people's sense is that it really sounds like Wang Chung, in the good sense, and
Yeah,
it also has a modern sound to it.
yeah, it does. I especially like the song called "Why." It's like a
Okay,
good dance number,
absolutely, yeah,
and "City of Light." I think those are my favorites on there. That's more of a rock tune. I
it
would
is, yeah,
classify it
yeah,
as. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, City of Light. I sort of wrote. It was when we made the album with an engineer called Adam Wren, and Adam had worked with Left Field and done quite a lot of electro stuff. But he produced a track called Space Junk for us, which came out in the late '90s.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, that track was used as the closing music for the first episode of The Walking Dead. And
Oh, very cool.
yeah, that came out last year, I think. So a whole new sort of wave of people has got into Wang Chung through that little piece. But we enjoyed working with Adam, and he's worked with us on and off on this album. I mean, I guess we've been recording it, not full time, but taking a couple of weeks here and a couple of weeks there for sort of the last 3 or 4 years, really. So Adam's been helping us with that, and I think the modernist sound is partly due to his take on that sort of thing, and how all that works.
Sounds like you guys have a great chemistry. You work together multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Nick and I get on really well as friends. We tend to sort of be into different kinds of music, I suppose. Well, I say that I think we like the same sort of music, but Nick is keen to sort of keep the band sounding quite commercial. If it was left to me, it would probably be much more weird and art rock kind of stuff. But these days, I have a sort of what I'd loosely call a jazz project, I suppose. Jazz in the sense of there's not much singing, and it's like upright bass and drums and stuff. So I have that project for my crazier ideas, and Wang Chung, I try and um, you know, keep appropriate to what we do.
Oh, well, that's neat that you have outlets for both sides of your personality.
Yeah, exactly. Give it a healthy schizophrenia, I reckon.
I wanted to comment on the artwork for Taser Up. Can you tell us how you selected that or how that came together?
Yeah, it was just very coincidental. In Canterbury, where I live, there are a few art galleries, and I was walking past one and saw this painting, which is the album artwork cover. It was just in the sort of shop window, and I immediately really liked it. And I was a bit naughty, really. I just snapped a picture of it with my phone, just to remind me. really. And but when it came to talking about artwork for this album, I sent it to Nick and a couple of guys we were working with then, and they all really loved it. Thought it was appropriate. And at that point, we were talking about the album being called "Abducted by the '80s," which is the name of one of the tracks on there, which is another slightly amusing story. But when I saw the little ray gun thing, I just sort of thought it looked like "Take Me to Your Leader," abducted by the '80s. It sort of fitted in with that whole thing. But anyway, I managed to talk to the gallery people and spoke to the painter who's a young artist, just out of college really, and he very kindly let us use the picture. And in fact, I bought the picture, so I kind of did my duty there, and so I have that picture in my kitchen actually, which is a nice reminder all the time. But yeah, he was agreeable to us using it as the cover, and so there we are, supporting young artists, Wang Chung.
Oh, well, that's neat. I like how that worked out. I'm always interested in the story behind the artwork as well as the music.
Yeah, it's such an important part of the product, isn't it? I hate that word about music, but the whole kind of visual and audio thing is important. I just recently got back into listening to vinyl. I'd spent a small fortune on a turntable at the beginning of the year, and I've been buying things on vinyl. And that whole thing of having the artwork where you can really see it and it's all on a proper scale, just reminded me of how important that part of the album experience is.
Yeah, it's great to have that big 12-inch, especially the ones that fold out. That was such a different experience that this newer generation, maybe they'll get into that again. I thought
Yeah,
the bigger artwork was terrific.
yeah, yeah. No, I was listening to Beggar's Banquet recently, the Rolling Stones album, and that's particularly good on that gatefold artwork thing. The photograph of them in the middle of the gatefold is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what our image of those early rock bands would be if we didn't have that. It would be so different.
Very different, actually. Yeah, very different. Yeah.
You have had done quite a few endeavors. You had, gosh, nearly a 20-year hiatus from Wang Chung. What
Yes.
are some other things that you have been busy with during that time?
Well, I had a family, so that takes quite a lot of time. I have three children. Well, they're not kids anymore; they're all grown up. One of my sons is an actor, a very successful actor here in the UK. Actually, he was in a soap opera, not a real opera, a soap opera called EastEnders. I don't know whether you get that in the States. It's a sort of BBC show, and he was in that for about 4 or 5 years and became quite a big star here. But now he's doing more directing and stuff. And my other kids are all doing interesting things. Another's an actor, and one of them manages these really posh restaurants in London, which is always handy when you're up there.
Oh, wow.
But on musical projects, yeah, I did all kinds of things. I did a project with Tony Banks out of Genesis. He was occasionally makes solo records, and he was doing this record and needed somebody to sing and I think help him write some of the lyrics as well. So I got involved in that. That was a really great project because Tony's a great musician, very sort of exacting. He's likes accuracy and likes things done quickly. So that was good. Good for my chops, as they say. And yeah, I produced various bands with a friend of mine called Chris Hues. Chris actually produced Dance All Days back in the '80s for us, and Chris and I remain good friends. And so yeah, I worked with a couple of bands on albums with him in the '90s, and then, as I say, this jazz project has generated 2 albums as well. And Chris produced both of those for me, and we did a bit more work this summer on a third album. So yeah, so it's all good. There's lots of musical stuff going on.
Well, can you tell me what were some of the circumstances that led to the regrouping of Wang Chung?
Mm. I think a lot of it was timing, but the catalyst. That's a good word, isn't it? The catalyst for it was probably us doing a TV show called "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time." And the basis of that show was that you did one of your hits, and you also did a cover of a modern song. We actually did a cover of Nelly's "Hot in Here," which I think was really surprising for a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that song, and in fact, it was Chris who suggested that I do that, and so that was very cool. And I think we did that over in Los Angeles, and Nick and I were together doing that, and really got that there was a lot of affection for the band, and some work opportunities came up from doing that, and some stuff with our publishing as well. So yeah. and I think Nick had been very busy working with record labels. He worked for Sony for a long time and for Warner's and stuff. But with the changing face of the record business, he was no longer doing that. And I had a bit of time as well, so we decided, yeah, let's think about how Wang Chung would be in the 21st century, and we sort of planned out this album and started collating all the material for that. And in I think 2009, we did a tour called the Regeneration Tour with some other 80s bands. 2010, we did a little tour of our own. Or was that? No, I think it was. I don't know, I've probably got the dates wrong. It might have all been a year later than I'm saying. So for a couple of years, we were touring the States, and I hope that we're going to be back there this summer. So
Oh, that would be terrific.
there's a couple of people who've already want to book us. So we need to put some dates around that, and around sort of July, August kind of time, almost certainly we'll be back doing live shows
Yeah, we'd love to see you on this side of the pond. That would be a really great show.
as well. It'd be great to be there. That's a great music town.
You had mentioned, that you did the cover of Nelly's Hot in here. And since this is a Nelly town, obviously he's from St. Louis. I was curious, has he acknowledged or commented on this performance in any official capacity?
Not in any official capacity, I don't think. No, I'm not very good at sort of keeping up with all of that stuff, actually. But as far as I know, no, we haven't had a kind of any comment from him. So yeah, it'd be great to. Well, we the new album there was a possibility of using that track on the new album, but for the new one we really wanted to do all original songs, and aside from the fact that we got a remix of Dance All Days just to put everything in context to kick things off with on that album, everything else is brand new material. And so I think what the plan is to sort of April, May, perhaps to coincide with the touring this summer, we'll put out another album as well. And that may well have Hot in Here and some of the more dance-oriented kind of songs that we're doing on that as well. So if Nelly wanted to get involved, he's more than welcome.
Wow, that sounds like that would be fun. We'll be looking forward to that release when it comes out. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, no, I think there's the 20-year hiatus. Didn't mean that we weren't writing songs and doing stuff. So there's a lot of material actually that's backed up. That needs to see the light of day. So there will be more albums.
Could you briefly describe your personality versus Nick's personality, how you guys work together, how maybe you're the same or different?
Mm. I think, yes, that's a good question. I think, at certain levels, Nick is probably more business minded about the band than I am. And so, he is focused on the ways that, we can do, like he works a lot on the sort of video stuff that we put out to coincide with the tracks. He's a good networker. He knows loads of people in the business, obviously, because of his jobs working with the labels. So he's more of a sort of entrepreneur and goes to gigs a lot and stuff. So whereas I guess I'm a bit more sort of insular, kind of much more focused on the music, really. And I'm very happy to sit and write songs or music or whatever. When it comes to playing it to people, I'm can take it or leave it, frankly. So I guess to a certain extent, there's that split between us, which I think is useful that we sort of complement each other. But I think at another level, Nick's a very creative person, very musical. I mean, amazing guitarist and bass player as well. So I think on another level, we're actually quite similar, and that sort of keeps us together because our sort of musical tastes, although they're wide ranging, are quite similar, and especially when it goes to our sort of musical roots. For me, the Beatles, same as Nick. I think he started to get more into Frank Zappa and proggy kind of stuff. My taste was probably a little more conservative than his. We were kids, but there's a lot of common ground between us.
Speaking of your musical influences, can you speak a little bit to how maybe your influences have changed, things that influenced you early on, and maybe things that are influencing you a little more now
Mm.
than they used to?
Yeah, I mean, I think when Wang Chung was around in the 80s, probably the big influences were from the punk bands that sort of sprang up around. Well, particularly the UK, but to a certain extent the US as well, with the Ramones, for example. But that sort of art rock punk thing that was happening around the end of the 70s, that was a big stimulus that sort of got me back into pop music, having sort of gone off and done a degree in sort of like classical music and stuff. Really, I was also a big Bowie fan. The Bowie albums like Low, Heroes, Station to Station, those were
Oh
massive
yeah, those are great.
albums, yeah, on me. So I think that was all very powerful at that time. And of course, I mean, I always mention the Beatles, but they were, when I was a kid, that's what I grew up with. So they're a constant influence. Them and the Beach Boys as well, actually. But more recently, my influences are probably more jazz oriented, really. And so when I say jazz, I'm talking about Miles Davis in particular, and the stuff that he did in the late 60s through to about 73, 74. I really love all that stuff, and that's a prime influence on my jazz project here in the UK. But Thelonious Monk as well. I sometimes think, if I could sort of uh, be the owner of any or the creator of any sort of catalogue of music, Thelonious Monks would probably be the one that I'd be known for. I just think his music is so stunning. Do you know what I mean? It's on the one hand, it sounds like really childlike and almost like out of tune, and on the other hand, it just seems so kind of wise and sophisticated and sort of to the point. So I love his music. I have all his albums and track down the bootlegs where I can and stuff. So I think he's just an amazing musician.
Coming into my final questions here, I feel the need to ask: when the band formed, what was the meaning of Wang Chung? What was the evolution of this name that became also a popular phrase?
Yeah. Well, it did start off. I guess Nick and I had various band names. Intellectuals was the band that Nick had when I first met him. Then we had a band called 57 Men, and we were looking for a name that was different, I think. And I think I also wanted a name that had no rock and roll baggage with it, if you know what I mean. And I came across this name, Wang Chung, in a book I was reading on a German composer called Stockhausen, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. He's like a sort of electronic music composer, I suppose. And I showed it to Nick, and he was kind of like, "Yeah, okay, let's go with that." At that time, the Wang was spelled Huang, and the meaning at that time, well, it never really sort of. We didn't choose it because of the meaning. We chose it because it was weird, basically.
It is different.
It is different. When we signed to Geffen Records, because we did one album on Arista, based out of the UK, and we realised people really had a problem with the name because it's quite alienating. I mean, we saw all kind of interesting things in it, but basically people were kind of like, "What the hell is Huang Chung?" Embarrassed saying it, I think, in case they were saying it wrong and all of that stuff. Which wasn't our intention at all. So when we signed to Geffen for our second album, David Geffen, in fact, said, because we were thinking maybe we should change it, and he was saying, "No, it's a great name, because it's like nothing else. But you should just spell it so that people can say it and they don't feel so weird about it." So we changed the spelling from Hung to Wang. So we have this name, Wang Chung, which means even less spelt like that than it does with the original spelling. And what I love about it is that people over the years have just sort of run with it and created their own meanings out of it. So whatever it was we intended has become irrelevant. It's down to what people want it to be now.
Yeah, it's come to mean many things in
Yeah.
popular culture.
Yeah.
Some of them cleaner than others.
There was a shock jock DJ type guy who interviewed me back in 2000. And I won't tell you what he said, Wang Chung, but it was quite confronting.
Well, I know that you have a busy press day today with Tazer Up setting to come out, so I want to respect your time. Just in closing, what would you like to say to your fans, old and new?
Well, I'd really like to thank them. Mainly, I'd like to thank them very much for sort of hanging in there for 20 years waiting for this new release. And there's a couple of guys in particular, Kent Markwart and Brian Ware, who during the wilderness years, if you like, really sort of kept the flame alive by running this sort of great website, fan site. Kent did a huge amounts of research, all of which is sitting on 2 or 3 DVDs that he sent me, which one day we'll actually upload onto our site. But there's all sorts of stuff and memorabilia and so on. They were also very good about searching out 12 inches and all this kind of stuff that was ephemera, if you like, that was around for a little while. So I'd really like to thank Kent and Brian for hanging in there. But there are all sorts of other people, who were encouraging and who continue to be. And I'm glad to say there are lots of new fans these days as well who are sort of really enthusiastic and follow us on Facebook. We're at Wang Chung Band on Facebook, and we Twitter occasionally as well. But it is our Facebook page. We run it, so it's not like you're speaking to some anonymous person. And yeah, just want to thank everybody for hanging in there, and hopefully you'll enjoy this new record, this new Tazer Up.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's been great talking to you, and we're looking
Thanks.
forward to your release of Tazer Up.
Great. Thanks very much for taking an interest in it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care.
Okay. Bye, Angie.
Bye bye.
Bye.